The baby woke me up at 3:12 a.m. I fed her, burped her, and finally she drifted back to sleep against my chest. I lay there in the dark feeling like a different person. The hospital bracelet had rubbed my wrist raw 3 weeks ago, and I still hated looking at my reflection. I could tell I was tired in my face, like I'd been erased and redrawn sloppy. My phone buzzed on the nightstand. It was Ethan's phone number, not his usual ringtone, which made my hand stiffen. I picked it up because of instinct more than hope. He'd been home more the last week, trying to be helpful with the baby, but he'd also been distant in a way I hadn't seen before. He left a voicemail this time. He always left voicemails when he didn't want the pressure of a live conversation. I hit play with the baby, still sleeping between my collarbone and chin. He started with a laugh, breathy and private. He said a name I didn't know, called her my name, then called her the other me. He sighed, sounded like someone trying not to cry, and said he missed her like an old habit. He said he was sorry he'd screwed up again and asked her to come by the hotel where he'd be that weekend. Said to wear the blue dress, said he would wait. I froze. The baby's warm breath hit my throat. That voicemail injected cold into my bones. The words kept going through me like something sharp. The other me. Blue dress. Hotel. He promised to wait. He sounded like he wanted to run away and wanted someone almost exactly like me to come. I stayed where I was, listening to the voicemail on repeat until the baby shifted and opened one eye. Her tiny fingers curled around my shirt, and I felt my heart rearrange itself around that small, trusting weight. The husband who'd been cuddling her on the couch last night had apparently left a plan like a breadcrumb trail towards someone else. I waited until sunrise and then I went through his coat pocket. It's not who I am, I told myself, but I did it anyway. There was an envelope with a thank you from a conference, a receipt for a hotel 2 towns over dated last month, and a lipstick stain on a receipt, like the kind of stupid evidence that makes your world tilt. My hand shook so badly I texted my sister without thinking. I typed, he left a voicemail for someone he called the other me. She called back 30 seconds later and asked where I was. She arrived 15 minutes after that, with coffee and the kind of calm I didn't have. The first evening was an avalanche. I showed her the voicemail, the receipt, the lipstick mark. She said to breathe, to hold the baby, to not do anything stupid. Then she did the stupid thing for me. She called him. Ethan answered on the second ring like nothing was wrong. He told my sister he was at work. He said he loved the baby. He asked if we needed groceries. I could hear the lie in the flatness of his voice, and I felt a sickness in my chest like I'd been punched. I told Ethan over dinner that I'd found the voicemail. He was quiet for longer than I liked. Then he said it was a mistake, that he used a nickname for someone at work, that he was sleep calling his contact list. He sounded practiced. He said that he never met anyone at that hotel, and that the receipt must be from a business dinner. He suggested we all, me, him, my sister, go back to our lives. He suggested I should trust him. He kissed my forehead. I wanted to drink bleach. That night he left early for an overnight job. He said it was an emergency. He said he'd be back in the morning. I watched his taillights disappear down the street, and I counted the minutes like teeth grinding against each other. 2 days later, I found messages on his laptop. Hidden folder. He'd been careful. He'd used an app with disappearing messages and a throwaway email. But the messages started with the same nickname he'd used in the voicemail. He'd sent pictures of a woman whose face looked a little like mine from certain angles, the same mole near the jaw, the same laugh lines. She dyed her hair the same brown. The messages were affectionate. He called her the other me. He called her baby mama, joking about the way my hair stuck up at night. He said, I don't know how to be without you, which cut deeper than anything because that's the exact thing he'd said to me when I'd miscarried 3 years ago. I did what I promised myself I wouldn't do. I confronted him in the kitchen while holding the baby like armor. I played one of the message screenshots for him on my phone. He swallowed. He tried to say work friend again. Then he said she'd sent him the pic and he'd asked a question back. He said the kiss was a mistake. He said they'd met once. He said he'd ended it the next day when he realized he'd been a jerk. He asked me to trust him. You can believe him, or you can believe the receipts, the messages, the voicemail where he told someone to wear a blue dress. I could not square the man saying sorry with the man who'd made plans. I could not be the same woman who stayed and kept my mouth shut. I went to my friend Jenna. She lived 10 minutes away and had been the person I turned to when I'd been too scared to tell my mother about my panic attacks. She sat on my couch and took the baby while I paced, telling me in brutal sentences that hit like a slap. She said to ask him for the truth, to set a time, to not let him weasel. She said, if he wants to be with you, he'll leave whatever this is behind. If he doesn't, you stay and you protect the baby. So I did something I'd rehearsed in the dark. I left the house while Ethan was at work, drove to the hotel on the receipt, and checked the lobby names. There was a name, a room number, a date. The clerk asked if I wanted him to call a number. I said no. I took a photo of the registration card with my phone and left before I felt stupid. I went straight to the clinic where the hotel's CCTV would have footage, but they don't keep it for long. I was running out of time and patience and dignity. When I showed Ethan the registration and pressed play on the voicemail in front of him, something in him broke. He didn't swear, didn't get defensive. He made a small, animal sound, like someone who'd been caught in a trap and decided to stop struggling. He admitted he had slept with her once, that he had been tangled with her over the last 6 months. He said he reached out because sometimes when he missed me, he reached for people who looked like me. He said he knew it was cowardly and disgusting. He said he'd been lying to himself. He could have both. My throat closed. The baby started fussing, and I felt like the center of gravity in my life had moved. Ethan asked for forgiveness and promised to go to therapy with me. He said he'd delete everything and told me to tell him what I needed. He begged me not to leave. He cried on the tile while the baby slept against my chest, and I felt something inside me splinter. Weeks after that felt like rehearsals for disaster. He did the right things for a while. He showed up. He didn't text her. He went to therapy where he unpacked boredom and loneliness and his fear of becoming just a dad. He sat in rooms and said the things people say when there's a chance to save something. We had a few good mornings with sunlight and pancakes and him holding the baby like his hands were the only thing keeping him from falling apart. Those mornings tricked me into thinking we'd found a way back. Then I found plane tickets on his credit card. For a weekend, he told me it was a work retreat. One ticket was in his name. The other listed a woman with the same first name as me, but a different last name. He'd lied again. He hadn't gone to the retreat. This time, I didn't confront him in the same fear-struck rage I'd had before. I sat on the couch with the baby in my lap and called his mother. She came over 10 minutes later and sat like an old judge across from Ethan. She asked him why he kept throwing matches on a dry house. He hung his head and said something about needing to feel recognizable. His mother slapped the table so hard she left a print. She told him he'd made his choice and now he needed to accept the consequences. He moved into a friend's apartment that night. My sister took me to court with my hands shaking when I filed a temporary separation. It was a ridiculous, official feeling. The papers told me I had rights, that I could protect my child even if my heart felt like it was being used as a pothole. The judge told me to keep records and to get a lock put on any joint accounts. The clerk handed me a brochure about postpartum depression like it was a Band-Aid. The lowest point wasn't Ethan moving out. It was standing in my kitchen 6 weeks later on a Tuesday afternoon. The baby asleep in her car seat, while Ethan called begging me to let him come back. He left a voicemail asking me to forgive him, sounding like the man who'd left the first voicemail but without the confidence to dare hope I would answer. I put the phone on speaker and played it while my sister and I listened. I felt like I was sitting outside my own life watching an actor recite lines. I realized the man I wanted had never been him. The man I wanted was someone who didn't choose to run toward a version of me he could flirt with in hotel bars. I chose the baby. I chose a reality where our daughter had 2 stable parents who respected the boundaries required to keep her safe. I told Ethan he could see her with supervised visits while we worked on co-parenting, but he could not live with us. He could not be the person who said one thing and did another. He screamed into a pillow and then we both slept in separate houses for a long time. The legal stuff was boring and precise. We split bank accounts, made a parenting plan, and I filed for counseling for myself. I found a therapist who didn't coddle me and who told me that feeling betrayed didn't mean I had failed as a mother. I learned how to label my feelings without letting them swallow me. Ethan went to intensive therapy, and in the small hours, he made the slow, irritating progress of someone who owed a debt and was learning how to pay it. Months later, we sat across from each other in a mediator's office and signed an agreement that said he could have scheduled visits and that I would be the primary custodial parent. It wasn't the romantic resolution the movies promise. It was paperwork and moderation. It was 2 adults learning to be better at what mattered, the child between us. The day everything felt steadier, I watched Ethan push our daughter on a swing in a park, and I felt something like relief. He was better. He wasn't perfect. He would never be the man who hadn't walked towards something that looked like me and thought it would fill his hollowness. But he showed up and he apologized honestly in small ways and big, boring ways until the guilt didn't rent him like a cheaper space. I kept the voicemail saved for a while, because sometimes pain is a map. I would listen to it on the worst days as a measure of how hard I'd fought to get the life I wanted for my daughter. Then, one late night when the baby was finally sleeping through and I'd been to therapy and felt a small, greedy spark of safety in me again, I deleted it. I sat on the couch and watched the phone light go from recorded to empty. It was absurd and huge. I felt like the other me was the woman who had let that voicemail sit like a coal in her hand until she learned how to not kiss fire. Ethan and I are not together in the way we were when he left that first message. He apologized in 1,000 small ways and has earned the right to be part of our daughter's life, conditionally. I learned to trust action over words. and to never let a voicemail be the map of my day again. Sometimes, late at night, when the house is quiet and the baby sleeps and I can hear him humming in the other room as he does the dishes like a man who's trying, I think about the woman he called the other me. I don't know if she ever came to that hotel or if she existed at all beyond a screen and his longing. What I do know is this: I was holding our newborn when I heard that voice offer plans to someone else. I kept breathing. I kept the baby. I chose a life where truth mattered more than the fantasy of ease. That turned out to be the hardest, clearest kindness I could give both of us.